Hello and welcome to News Central TV. I am Bola Tinubu. The headlines. Presidency set to begin distribution of 42,000 metric tons of grains. Zamfara State House of Assembly impeaches Speaker over rising insecurity. Voter registration for South Africa's 2024 general elections officially closes. And details shortly. The Nigerian Presidency says the 42,000 metric tons of grains it promised for nationwide release 2 weeks ago are being bagged for distribution. The Presidency on Friday said the remaining 60,000 metric tons of grains will be purchased from the Rice Millers Association of Nigeria as a temporary response to the nation's growing food crisis and the rising price of commodities. President Bola Tinubu on February 8 ordered the immediate release of 102,000 metric tons of various grain types from the Strategic Reserve and the Rice Millers Association of Nigeria. Deliberations began in earnest after angry youths and women took to the street of Minna, the Niger State capital, and Kano to protest what they described as the rising cost of living in the country. Similar protests also erupted in Ondo State, Nigeria's southwest. Let's also tell you that data from the National Bureau of Statistics shows foreign investments in Nigeria's manufacturing industry went up by $644 million in 2023 to $1.5 billion from $948 million in the previous year. The NBS in its capital importation report said manufacturing ranked first as a sector with the most investment. The banking and finance sectors came a distant second and third as the sectors that made up the top 3 investment magnates. Lagos State was a top destination in 2023 with $2.5 billion, followed by Abuja with $1.1 billion. Abia and Rivers State recorded $150 million and $6 million in that order. Other states that attracted investment in 2023 were Ogun, Ekiti, Abia, Akwa Ibom, Anambra, and Adamawa. 29 states failed to attract any investment during the period. And to talk about this further, I'm being joined by Bola Tinubu, Executive Director, Africa Bridge Initiative. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me today.
All right, how would you assess the impact of the significant decline in foreign investment inflow on Nigeria's overall economic stability?
Yeah, so for Nigeria, the economy as the outlook for 2024 is not yet moving as it should be. Now, talking about the manufacturing sector, for years, we've seen a lot of decline in the foreign direct investment into Nigeria. And this is not far-fetched. We're having too many instability in our economy as a result of saboteurs from the security challenges. Now, in the last 4 years, we've lost more than $46 billion in terms of foreign direct investment. And when we talk about the economy, we are looking at the 3 tiers of the economy. That is the primary economy, the secondary, and the tertiary. Under the primary economy, we talk about the agri sector. Under the secondary, we talk about the manufacturing sector. And under the tertiary, we talk about the service and the banking sector. So, how come much of investment driving towards the manufacturing sector? Is very easy, so to say, because they are having manufactured tangible goods. You know, the tertiary economy, talking about the agri, should have attracted more because we should be building our agri sector. But because of the security challenge, so whoever is coming in with billions of dollars will look towards the secondary economy, talking about the manufacturing. And when you look at the manufacturing, it's not far-fetched. What is the return on investment? The return on investment in the manufacturing sector is much more higher and easier to ascertain than that of the primary sector. So having much more investment in the secondary economy is not far-fetched. We need to bring more on the table. And that means that we must also look at what are the variables that is making us to lose foreign direct investment. Number one, we talk about our lack of sustainable energy. We talk about lack of sustainable power. We talk about our security, incapacitated security apparatus. And that means that the foreign direct investment will dwindle. And when it's dwindling, it will affect our GDP. It also affects our inflation rate. Because if, as of today, we are talking about 28, even more than 29% as GDP rate, that means that will affect also the inflation. It also affects the consumer price index. And investors are coming into the country with the aim of making profit. So as of today, we are talking about more than 800 billion coming in for the manufacturing sector. But that is not enough if we are ready to drive the economy for year 2024. So we need more to be inflow for our economy, more for the manufacturing sector.
All right, let's take a look at the inflow across different states in Nigeria. I mean, what factors would you say led to Lagos being able to attract, a higher amount compared to other states?
All right, so for Lagos State, it's not, like I said earlier, it's not far-fetched. We look at the return on investment. Take, for instance, the red line, the railway line, the transport sector. Lagos talking about more than 20 million citizens. That is a massive market for an economy. So an average investor will look at, if I'm coming into Lagos, what is the security challenge in Lagos? For Lagos, we have more than 80% of the financial players in Nigeria in Lagos. So that means all the commercial banks, all the headquarters are in Lagos. CBN, most of the activities in Lagos. So whether it's bringing fund, we know that the first place to Lagos, because you understand that your capital is secured. Capital security is number one priority for every investor. So Lagos is safe when it comes to capital security. So looking at Abuja, taking second, we understand that moving ahead of other states like Ondo State, like Borno State, because if we're having much of capital security in Lagos, there's no capital security in Borno State. If you are bringing $4 billion into Borno State in the next 6 months, you are sure that by the end of the year, you cannot ascertain to get 70% of your capital. And that is why we can see that even though the Northern are producing much of our microeconomy, talking about the FMCG, food supply and the rest, yet those are not sustainable. So Lagos is attracting massive investment because of capital security. So if other states is looking at getting much of inflow like Lagos State, then those states must understand that they must beef up their economy in terms of security of capital of investors, because no investor will invest without seeing that the economic projection of that state will be going higher and not going down.
Okay, still talking about states in Nigeria, what's your position on policymakers or even stakeholders in addressing the challenges faced by states that fail to attract any foreign investments, during the period of the 4-year term?
In the last 4 years, we see more than 20 states out of 36 states not even be able to drive even up to $1 million as investment. That is not acceptable for an economy. And it's not far-fetched. It's simply because of the lack of intentionality on the part of the government officials in those states. Lack of intentionality and lack of capacity. Because you must understand that governance in the 21st century is beyond politics. There's a room for politics, but governance is all about sustainability. Governance is all about attracting inflows, attracting financial capacity for you to run. Government is all about packaging your brand with the private sector, both internal private sector and external private sector. So if you're a state governor, if you're an House of Assembly member, you don't understand what we talk about PPP arrangement in your state, that means you're not ready for governance. You're only playing politics. And politics has never helped any country. It's not politics that is helping America. It's sustainability of economy that is helping America. So we must understand that coming into the governance space, you must understand the meaning of PPP, that is public-private partnership arrangement, whereby you have an independent power project in your state that can give what we call it sustainable energy for your state, so that you can have 70% by the private sector, 30% by the government. So the private sector bring in about $20 billion. The state government bring in about, let's say, about $10 billion. When you put this together, you have more than $100 billion in your state. And that can sustain you for the next 10 years. Talking about youth employment, talking about quality education, talking about accessible and affordable health care. But you must still understand that governance is beyond politics. An economy intentional, and the capacity must be there on the part of the government officials.
Well, thank you so much for your time and your expertise on the news. Okpeoluwa Taiwo, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me today.
The Central Bank of Nigeria has instructed the Nigerian Customs Service to utilize the FX closing rate on the date of the Form M submission by importers for the clearance of goods and import duty assessment. This measure aims to tackle the volatility and frequent updates on the customs website concerning liberation of the foreign exchange market. The CBN stated this in a statement signed by its Director of Trade and Exchange Department, Hassan Mahmoud, noting that the frequent changes to the customs duties rate have disrupted pricing structure, leading to irregular increase in the final cost of goods in the market. And to talk about this, I've been joined live on the news by Ayokunle Olubunmi, Head, Financial Institutions Ratings, Augusto & Co., who joins me now to talk about this. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to have you join me.
Good afternoon.
All right. Do you think this new policy, will affect importers and also exporters in Nigeria?
Okay. Thank you very much. Let me first start by saying that a lot of us were surprised by these policy by the CBN, because actually this directive should come from fiscal authorities, particularly the Ministry of Finance. Because if you check, the custom doesn't report to the CBN. It's the Federal Ministry of Finance that is actually overseeing the Nigerian Customs Service. So this also even tends to give some indication to what some people perceive, that it is only the CBN, right, that is trying to tackle the current FX crisis that we actually have, unless it's being done by the fiscal side, right? Having said that, I think it's a positive development, because we've seen over the last couple of weeks that the CBD customers start adopting, if I could say, automatic adoption, right, or updating of the rates that they use for clearing goods. That's a very good development. However, we've seen that has adversely impacted importers, such that importers don't know what will be the prevailing rate on the day they want to clear their goods, right? And like we all know, a lot of businessmen, they don't like volatility. They like stability. So we enable them to plan and to even adopt the right strategy. So the beauty of it is that from the outset, from the day the Form M is being established, the importer can know, right, precisely what will be the exchange rate that will be applicable, what will be the payable due and duties, the amount that needs to be paid as import duty on those transactions, right? And then they cannot plan accordingly.
All right. What would be the impact of this on unemployment and as well as inflation in Nigeria?
Yeah. So for unemployment, what it can help businesses to do, like I mentioned earlier, it will help them to achieve stability, right? Because think about it as a businessman. You need to first know what will be your cost outlay, right? Even when you want to even import it, you know what will be the cost of that particular transaction, what will be the profit margin, and then definitely from there you can even start planning what will be the number of people that you need to actually employ. So if you reduce volatility, more businesses are going to actually be profitable. And then what you also see is that you will see that it can also help employment to a large extent. However, I haven't said that in terms of inflation, the impact will be a bit muted. Because if you look at it, we've been seeing a continuous rise in the exchange rates. So that means that, right, even if you have for instance, if you are importing something tomorrow, right, and the exchange rates keep on going up, you will still be actually going to be bringing in at a higher rate. So it might not significantly affect, it might not directly affect inflation, but basically what we do mainly is to reduce the uncertainty and volatility that's associated with financial transactions.
I'm afraid that's the most we can take, but thank you so much for your time on the news. Ayokunle Olubunmi. Thank you once again.
Thank you for having me.